All right, welcome back, everyone. Today is going to be a pretty cool tutorial. We are going to be doing an inventory, as you can see. So from continuing from last episode, we have a shop. The shop isn't necessarily a must for the inventory, but we will be building on top of it. So we'll just buy a bunch of those, and in our inventory, you can now see a bunch of items. If I hover it, it gives me the number of it. So if I click it, this pops up, and now it says the apple, the item name, the description, the cost. There's no count, but you can add that in. I'll show you how to do these things, so you'll be able to kind of build on top of it and do whatever you want. If I close it, nothing happens, but if I open it and then close it again, or sorry, use, you can see that the item count has gone down by 1. If I use it again, it disappears. The interface closes and the inventory updates. And this is pretty dynamic in the sense that if let's say I buy an apple, and here we go. Here's our inventory. I bought 2 apples. Let's say I buy a cherry because it's in the middle. I want to eat the cherries. If I eat both of the cherries, it disappears and updates our inventory, right? So if I eat 1 apple or banana, it'll only give me 1 banana. So this is a pretty dynamic inventory. Again, we're going to be using dictionary. So let's close this. So there's a few things I want to point out. So the one thing I didn't show, and I'm not going to, is I've made a different item here. And so this item is essentially the shop item. So I didn't show this in the last tutorial, but instead of using a animated sprite and putting them in, now what I'm doing is I just have the item here. The animation player is just playing this apple, right? So if I zoom in like that, it's just playing the apple, right? So the H frames is set to 17. And because all the other fruits are also 17 frames, every time I replace this, not there, no, sorry, it should be switch item. So instead of playing that, I just switch the texture, right? And let me show you the global. So now in the global, we just preload the icon. So it's very simple. We just have the icon as a key, and then we have preloaded our apple, right? And so you can do this for anything. And this is a lot easier because now in order to add an item, all we have to do is add it here, right? So if I wanted a third, fourth item, I can just add it right there, which makes things a lot more easy, and it makes it a lot more dynamic in that sense. So I don't have to go into this animated sprite and keep adding it, right? Okay, I'm not. Hopefully you understood that. If not, that's okay. Let's get right into the inventory. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is create the inventory. So I'm gonna do this in a canvas layer. I usually don't, but I'm gonna do it in canvas layer anyways, just for the sake of consistency. And then we'll name this inventory. No, I lied. You know what we're gonna do to make this easier? We're gonna actually duplicate the shop and just call it inventory. We're gonna go to the shop and whoa, what was that? And we're gonna delete the things we don't need. So we don't need the buying stuff. We need the name and description, but we're gonna drag that out. We don't need the item. We don't need the control. We'll put that thing there. For the name, no, for the name and description, we actually don't need, right? But what we do need is the title. So let's change this to title and have this as yeah, that's not how you spell inventory. Inventory, there we go. So that'll be our inventory screen. Let's put this in the middle. And the reason why we did that is because now I can just name this inventory, if I can spell. There we go. And I'm just going to remove this script from this, and I'm going to add a new script and call it inventory. And now in our main world, I'll just pop this inventory into our player. And now what we'll do, we have close. Close shouldn't work because we actually disconnected the script. So let's reconnect that. We'll connect this here. And then what we're going to do is simply play the animation thing that we have. Right, so get node, anim, anim, play, I can't type, play, trans, out, because we're closing the thing, right? Now, however, when we want it to come in, let's do something else. Let's press a button to get it to come into our screen. So what we'll do is create a function called input, event input, and say if event, we have to add it because I didn't add it into the project. So in our project settings, let's go to input map, and let's add a new action called inv for inventory. Let's add it, go to physical keyboard, or no, filter by event, and we'll just listen for E, sorry, and then add. We can also do I, because why not? I for inventory. And then we say is action just pressed inventory, so it'll listen for those two key actions. And if it is, all we have to do is say get node nm.play trans in. However, we're going to add a little bit of more complexity to this. So we're going to say if self.offset.y is equal to 300, then we'll trans in elif trans in at negative 300. Let's copy paste this line right here. And then let's copy this one more time to elif right here. But we'll say if it's at 0, then we'll play trans out. So that way, now what's happening? So let's try it. So if I press E, this comes in. If I press E, it comes out. Because if I press E, the first time, the offset is at 300, right? So in the beginning, the trans in, it should be at 300, right? So if I look at the position, it's at negative 300, sorry. So it's at negative 300, meaning it's up somewhere. So we're going to bring it in, right? If it's at 0, we're going to trans out, right? Because we've checked it for 0. And then we're going to zoom out. And if it's at 300, meaning it's down there somewhere, right? So if I look at trans out in the end position, it's now at 300, right? So now I want to bring it back in, right? I think that's it. The reason why we do this is because now if I keep pressing E while it's coming out, it will interrupt it. But that's it. Now let's actually add in our inventory. So let's close this, and go into our inventory. And we're going to add something called a grid. Where is it? Grid container. And then in this grid container, that's where we'll be adding our slots. So let's name this to inventory container. And let's not do anything there. Let's make a new node. We're going to have a panel as our slot. So let's save this as slot. Let's save it, rename it to slot. We're going to go up to our slots. And we're going to go to layout. And for the minimum size, if you ever work with panels, keep this in mind. The minimum size, if you create a child of a panel, the minimum size, if the minimum size is 0, it'll become 0. So you have to set the minimum size. So in this case, we're just going to do 32 by 32, which should be like that, right? Yeah, 32 by 32. Now let's add a sprite. And in that sprite, we're going to add our apple. And just quickly get the animation frames so it doesn't look wanky. Let's center it. I think that's it for now. So let's rename that to icon now. And then in our inventory, what we'll do is we'll make a script for the inventory container and then delete all this and create an onReady function. Our onReady function will just be, not function, sorry, our onReady variable will be our item. So we'll say item, yeah, we'll just say item, and then we'll preload our item. So let's, that's not it. Slot, there we go. So we preloaded our slot. And then so the way I did it, and I will show you why I do this. Let me pull out my reference real quick so I have a double check. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, there's 2 steps to this. Let's comment this out. The first step is to actually create our inventory with slots, empty slots, right? So these slots are all empty, but let's create the inventory by filling in our container. So to do that, let's say load slots in. And so to do that, we just for loop. It's very simple. So for loop in inventory size. However, inventory size doesn't exist, so let's make that. So let's say inventory size, and we'll do 24. So 24 slots total. And then inside of that for loop, I have to say in. Inside that for loop, we're just going to make item temporary, which is just going to be item.instantiate. And then we're just going to add child item, and that is it. That is it. So hopefully, if it's going to give a weird thing. So let's actually change the columns to 6. There we go. So if you didn't change the columns to 6, this is what you should get. Yeah, so let's change the columns to 6. So we have 6 columns, and then it'll just load in 24 slots, right? And yeah, so we can see a bunch of items that are in there and it doesn't do anything yet, but we filled in the inventory. So now what we want to do is fill in the items. So we filled in the slots, but now we want to fill in items into slots. So let's actually make a function for this and call it fill inventory slot inventory slots, right? And then let's go here and copy paste that. And then in that function, it's going to be the same idea as the for loop. So we're going to loop through the slots. However, we're only going to go up to the amount of inventory keys that we actually have. And how do we get that? Well, we actually have that by saying global dot inventory, right? So it's going to for loop through our inventory, depending on, let's close that. If we go into our global inventory, we only have one key right now. So it's going to for loop through it and only go to one, right? So in our inventory, so let's close this. In our inventory container, we now can for loop through our inventory slots in the amount of numbers of inventory items that we actually have. So now all we have to do is set the item slot to something. So let's actually go into our slot and create a script for this. And no, you know what? No, actually, yeah, let's create the script now. So in our slot script, what we're going to do is we're going to have a few variables. Actually, I'm not going to remove all those. Let's make a few variables. So one, we're going to have item name equals empty. Oh, we're going to have variable item description. That'll also be empty. Variable item cost, and that will be 0 by default. Variable item count, that'll also be 0 by default. And then we'll have a few other ones called has item. We'll come back to this. We'll have variable has item, which will be defaulted as false. They'll also have mouse entered, and we'll come back to this as well. So don't worry about the last two, but for now, let's take a look at these ones. So in these variables, these are going to hold values inside this slot. So each slot will hold these values depending on our inventory, right? So we've created, so if I play, let's pass for now so we don't get an error. So let's play. So we've created an inventory with a bunch of slots. If I go into the remote, go into our player inventory container, we can see all the slots. If I go into the slot itself, I don't know if I'll be able to see the member. Oh, I can right there. So we have the item name, description, etc., right? So what I want to be able to do is fill in these things in our inventory container script right here, right? So that's pretty easy. All we have to do is say get child, right? So we're looping through our I because we've already done that here. So we've added all the children, and now we can just say get child I, right? So get the first child, and then do this, right? So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna say we'll edit each slot individually. To do that, it's pretty easy. So we go into our slot and we just edit it. So we say get child dot item name equals global dot inventory at key I, and then we're going to give it the name of that item itself. And then we'll just do this for each thing that we need. So we have the description. So we'll do des. We have cost. And then we also have count, I believe, right? And then what we can do is replace that. So we have cost and then count. And then for the icon, instead of loading it, what we can do here, I'll just do it actually, and it'll be kind of self-explanatory. So what we can do is say get child. Where is it? Let me just pull out my reference here. What we'll do is we'll say get node icon, right? So we're going to get the child, the slot, then we're going to get the icon itself. And then we're just going to set the texture to the icon. But we're not going to set it equal to, we're going to load it in. So we've preloaded that icon, but we have to load it in. So if you don't load it in, I think it might error. You know what? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Because I haven't tried this before. Okay, so it doesn't work. Or no, it might work, but the icon is visible for all of them. So what we'll do is we'll say if has item equal true, and get node icon dot show else, let's say this and hide it. And then what we also have to do is in here, we have to say has item equals true. So now that we've filled that item, we have to make sure that the slot itself has an item which is equal to true. So let's play. And now everything should be empty except for one because we have an apple already in our global script, right? We put it in there. And then let me try changing the thing here. So let's do this and see what happens. Oh, interesting. You don't have to load it. Okay. Interesting. I actually didn't know that. Okay. So I'm going to load it anyways because I think in Godot 3.5 or 3, if you tried to just make it equal, it wouldn't work. But I guess it does work, so you can just not load it and just make it equal to it. So there you go. But that is it. However, what I want to do for the failed inventory slots, there's 2 steps to this that I want to do. So the first one is this one. First one is this one that we've done. This one fills in inventory, let's say inventory into the slots. However, what's going to happen, what I want to happen is I want to erase the inventory and then fill it in every time. So what we'll do, because it already exists, we can't just copy paste this, right? But what we can do is say for loop I in inventory size. And this is kind of a hassle, so I'm going to copy paste this. So we're going to basically do the same thing here, but we're going to set everything to empty. Specifically the has item. You could skip all this realistically, but I just want to set it all to empty. And then we're also going to say has item equals false. And you'll see later on why we do this. Empty all the slots of their items. But this is somewhat important. So 2 steps to this. We empty all the slots of their items, and then we fill in the inventory with the slots from our inventory into the slots, right? Okay, so now that we've filled in the inventory, let's actually make our inventory do something. So let's make this visible again. So in our slot, let's interesting. It doesn't do anything. Okay, yeah, let's add a label. And I'm gonna do something a little different than what I had in my reference. So in my reference, I will still show you how to do it. But in my reference, we had, if we hover something, the number 1 shows up. Instead, what we'll do is we'll have the number show up on the bottom right, no matter what. So this will be our count. And then let's put a number in. Let's theme override. We'll keep it as white, but I want the size to be a little smaller. So we'll say font size, and we'll make it like, yeah, that's fine. 12? No, we'll do like, let's do 10. Let's turn off grid snap. Let's put it, let's see what happens if I have 100. Okay, if I have 100, we'll move it right there. And then we'll snap it to the right instead. So that way it'll start from 1, 100, etc. Okay. And then we can actually just extend this. Awesome. So now in our slot, what we can do, instead of putting everything in the process function, we can go into our slot label. Not label, sorry. Our, what is this called? This guy. It is a panel, sorry. In our panel, we have a bunch of functions in control that are actually very useful. Specifically mouse entered and mouse exited. So let's connect those. So let's do mouse entered and mouse exited. So now what we can do is we can, just to try it out, let's try printing something. Let's say print item name. And then let's go play. Ooh, what happened here? Interesting. I guess load doesn't work. That's weird. Anyways. Okay, so we now have the item counts being printed. We have a bunch of weird things going on. Let me check my reference to make sure I did this right. Ooh, I did not load it in my reference either. I just made it equal to. Interesting. Okay, so this is fine. We're not going to load it in. I was wrong. We don't load anything in. We just make it equal to it. In our slot, for our mouse entered, we can see that it's printing a bunch of things, but sometimes it's not printing anything because the item name is empty. So if I hover this, it's going to print nothing. or should, yeah, there we go. We have a bunch of gibberish, right? But if I go over apple, it prints apple, right? So now, instead of doing that, what we'll do is we'll say mouse entered equals true on this. Mouse entered equals true, and then mouse entered equals false. Now, what we can do, first of all, let's go into reference here and say get reference. We'll say get count equals show if there is something, otherwise hide it. Oh my god. There we go. So we'll only show the count if there's an item in there, right? Next thing we're going to do is for the mouse entered, I think that's it. We're just going to say if it's exit. It's true if we exit or enter, and false if we exit. Now, if you wanted the thing that I had, so in my reference, we have, oops, let me just bring it in. We have the item panel showing. I have a panel with a label as the child. If you want to do that, what you can do is in the mouse entered, you can just put this here. So have the count hide here and then the count show here, right? But we're just going to do it only if there's an item in it, and that's it. So we're not going to hover anything. We're just going to check this true and false if it exits. Okay, that should be it. However, what I want to do, just to make this a bit unbuggy, we're going to check if it has an item first. So we're only going to make mouse enter true if there is an item. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything. Okay, now let's add another function. Let's make this go down. And then let's add our last function in this guy. So we're going to have an input function, input event, and say if event is action pressed. We want to press left click, but we don't have left click, so we have to actually make that. So let's go here, say left click, add it in, go to here. We're going to add an action, mouse button. We'll just listen for input. So left click again. Okay, and left mouse button. There we go. And then in here, we'll say left click. There it is. And so now we can left click. Now that we check for the left click, we're going to check if the mouse is entered into this slot. So we'll say if mouse entered, then we can do something. And what do we want to do? Well, we want the thing to pop up, right? So in our reference, we have the item thing pop up. Well, we have to make that. So let's make that. For now, though, what we can do is let's print something. Let's print, what do we want to print? Item name. Why not? So now let's play and see if this works. So if I click a random thing, nothing happens. But if I click the apple, it prints apple. Awesome. So now let's go into our empty thing and make a new canvas layer. In this canvas layer, this will be called item info. There we go. Item info. Let's save this as item info in our main scene. Let's move all this, and we're going to add this in our inventory. So item info. We're going to add this in. It should be at 0, 0. Transform. Okay, and you know what I realized? Let's delete that again. So let's go back to our inventory, delete that, delete the item info. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our inventory and say item info. There we go. Now we're going to take this. Now we have some references. Item info. We're going to get rid of all the scripts. We don't need these. In fact, we don't need these nodes. So we don't need this. We don't need this. We need this label. We need the panel. We need the animation. However, for the animation, what we're going to do is we're going to set trans in as one thing. Whoops. So in trans in, instead of doing, let's put this at 0. Instead of doing an animation, we're just going to have it pop up. And there's going to be a reason for this, but I'm not going to explain it right now. So we're just going to have trans in pop up, and trans out is going to trans out right away. So it's going to, let's remove this key, delete key, and this will just be, why isn't it? There we go. Okay. And then we'll set the time to 0.1. Okay, so the animation for trans in, we'll just have it pop in, but this isn't our inventory. This is our inventory information. So let's make this a bit smaller. So let's make it like this big. We'll drag in this guy. This will be item name. This will be our close button. So we're going to actually still use that. For a title, we'll pop that up. This will be our background. let's name this. Let's actually change that though for the style. And we'll put, I don't know. Yeah, let's do like purple or something. Let's put the background in the background so the item name pops up. And then in the title, so there's a few more things we need. We need sprite. And then interestingly enough, we're going to actually need another animation player because this animation player needs to be playing separately from this guy. So what that means is we're going to have our apple. Let's go into animation, 17. Let's pop this guy into here, but let's transform it to 2 times bigger. So this will be our icon. And then in our animation player, we're going to have an animation called idle. And all this is going to do is just play our icon. So in our icon, let's go here. Let's go to frame. Let's key that. We'll go to frame 1 and etc. until we reach the end, which should be 16 frames. Let's do one more. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So now it should be playing our icon. So let's actually do this and loop it. So make sure you always loop it so it loops the apple. So now our item icon will be playing the apple, and we'll be able to load that in. So that'll be cool. Okay. Let me just double check I got everything we need. Yeah, that's everything we need. Let's duplicate our button. We're gonna have a used button, but we're not gonna make that just yet. Let's rename this to use. Let's disconnect all the signals because these aren't connected to anything. But let's make a script for it. Let's make a script for item info. So item info.gd. There we go. And now we can connect our close and use button. So let's connect close. Let's connect use. Let's connect use, please. There we go. And in here, it's going to be similar to the slot. So let's actually copy paste these. So we need these same variables, except for mouse entered. We don't need mouse entered. Let me check if I need has item. Yeah, we have has item. Nope, I lied. I don't use it. Let's delete that. But we do need the item name, the description, the cost, and the count. And let's fill it in. So from our slot, when I click something, we want this guy to pop up, and then we want to fill it in. So in our inventory, let's actually put our inventory info in. So we're info here. There we go. There it is, our inventory info. We want to basically, from our slot, be able to click it and then fill this item info in. So first of all, we need to access that info. So to do that, I've experimented with it, and I found out, or not I found out, but it is get node, get parent, item info, and then icon. So if you want to figure this out on your own, if you named it different things, right? Let's pretend there's an icon down here, or a slot, sorry. So we go get parent. So now we're here. We want to get parent again. So now we're at inventory, and then we want to get item info. So now we've accessed item info from our slot, but we also want to access the icon. So we're going to go into the item info and then get the icon, and we're going to set the texture equal to our texture. So the slot icon, so the slots, whoops, I didn't mean to close that. The slot icon has a texture that we've already set. So we can actually just get it by saying get icon.texture, and we can set it equal to each other. Awesome. So now let's do this same thing. So let's copy paste this, but we're not going to set the icon. We're going to set all the variables that we just set. So we have item name. We're going to make that equal to item name. And then same thing for everything. So we're going to do item description. Item description. We're going to copy paste the item cost. And we're basically sending over the information. Obviously, this isn't the best way. In fact, a better way would have been to do it through a function or something, but that's okay. We're going to do it this way. It's just passing over the information into the item info. And then from here, we're going to call the animation player. Here we go. By saying /anim, and then we'll play trans in. So now we can transition in our item info. Let's see, what else do we need to do? Okay, we'll do that later. And that's it. So now if I play, I go into our inventory, I click it, this pops up. We can't do anything. It doesn't do anything yet, right? But it does pop up, which is awesome. Let's continue on. So from our slot info, let's actually fill in some things. So let's actually, what we'll do is we'll create a function called update info. So instead of doing this in like the process function, we'll say function update info as a function. and then we'll say get node, not icon, title. Title is the name of the item. So we'll say dot text equals item name. And I just realized we don't have a label for the description. So let's make one. So we'll duplicate that and pop it down here. There we go. We'll make it like that big. But we'll center it from the, not the top. Yeah, we'll center from the top here. There we go. Let's pop this in a bit higher. There we go. So now we have the description. And so now we can do the same thing. So we can say des equals dot text equals item des, and then we'll say plus next line cost plus item cost. But this is a number, so we have to convert it to a string. And that is it. So now what we can do is just call this function from our slot. So in here, we can call it by saying get the node, and then call that function. And so now, if I play and go here, I pop this up, it updates it. So it says this is an apple, cost this, it's an apple. I can't close it yet, so let's actually do that. So we have close connected. In our close function, what do we want to do? We just want to say get node, anim dot play trans out, and that'll work. So let's continue. Let's do a little bit more before we test. So now we want to look at the use. So how do we actually use something? Well, interestingly enough, it's not too complicated until we have 0 of something. So let's figure out. So there's two cases. The one case is we have item count higher than 1. Now, if item count is 1, then we have a problem. But we're going to pretend that's not a problem yet. So first, let's for loop through our inventory. So item in global dot inventory. And the reason we're doing this, I want you to try to think about why we're going to do this. The reason is because we have to find the item that we're actually using. So we have the item name, we have the item description, et cetera, but we have to find the item in our inventory, right? Because this is a separate thing from our inventory, right? But we can find it by just for looping through it and then seeing if it's equal to it by saying global dot inventory at I at name is equal to item name. If it is, meaning we've found the item in our inventory that we're using or want to use, or eat in this case, then what are we going to do? Well, easy. We're just going to say item count minus equals 1. Now, in the case that we have more than one apple, for example, it's pretty easy, right? We can just say, we can take this and then say count, oops, minus equals 1, right? And that would work. So yeah, let's see what happens. Let's play our thing, go here. I can close it, that works. If I use it, it doesn't update our thing, but it does actually work. So let's actually go into our use and let's print our inventory. So global dot inventory. If I save it, it should work. So if I save it, we can see here the count has gone down. So it's going down to negatives now. But we don't want to do that, right? We want to check for something. So once we say item count negative equals 1, let's check to see if item count is now equals 0. If it is, what are we going to do? Well, we want to remove that key from our inventory. And funnily enough, this is actually a bit more complicated than it seems. And removing an item or a key from an inventory is, it's a little harder than it seems. So let's try to explain it as best as we can. But in this case, if item count is not equal to 0, meaning we have more than 1 yet so far, we'll just subtract to the count, right? So that's pretty easy. Now here, we want to remove item from inventory, then update the inventory. To update the inventory, actually, on the screen, on the UI, what we can do outside of here, after the loop, once we found the item, we can say get parent. Now I'll just say get node. We'll do // inventory. I think I spelled that right. Let's double check. So we're here and we want to get this guy, right? No, we want to get this guy actually. Yeah, so we're here. Let's go into the script. We're going to get parent, so we're going to go up here, and then we want to get inventory container. And then, so now you've found out why we have this guy. Fill inventory slots. Now you understand why we've reset everything. And then we fill it in. So this does two things. This fills our inventory, but it also updates our inventory. So if our inventory in global has changed, this will essentially remove everything and then put it back in. So it'll update it essentially. So let's actually do that. Let's call that function. Let's fill inventory. In here though, what are we going to do? So we have to remove the item from the inventory. So this is actually a bit harder than it seems because dictionary in Godot does not have this capability. It does not have a remove key. But what we can do, the concept behind this, we're going to have a dictionary. We're going to make a temporary dictionary. So let's do that. Dictionary, and let's put this guy to make it look like a dictionary. And we're going to have a temporary dictionary copy, and we're going to basically go through our current inventory that we have, and we're going to put in every key into this temporary dictionary except for the one item that we are trying to use, right? So we're going to so let's say I have an apple and a banana, and I'm going to eat all the apples. Once apple is equal to 0, I'm going to basically take this temporary dictionary and put in banana. Now, if I have cherry, I'm going to put cherry in as well. Now I don't want to put apple though. That's the key, right? So to do this, we're going to for loop through our dictionary, but we have to say for loop x in global dot inventory. So now we can for loop through it. And inside of this, there's going to be two cases. So the reason why this becomes a bit complicated is because if we have, so there's two cases. If I is greater than, or x is greater than I, then we can just copy it over normally. To copy it, it's, no, sorry. If it's smaller than I, here, hold on. Well, let's pass for now. And then if we'll have an elif statement here, and then we'll say if elif is smaller than I, then we can say temp dictionary at x is equal to global dot inventory at x. So remember, equaling something like this basically just adds it to it. So we're going to take the global inventory like 0, for example, and just copy it into this, or basically bring it over to the temporary dictionary because it's empty, right? So the temporary dictionary has no keys yet. And it's going to check if it has the key 0, right? In this case, which it doesn't. If it doesn't, then we'll add this key to it, or this dictionary to it. Now, however, you might think you could just do this and it works. However, this won't really work in the case of 3 items. So let me play my reference. So in here, let's buy some items. So I have an apple. Let's buy a banana. Let's buy a cherry. Now I have 3 items. Now the problem is this key, the apple key is 0. The apple key is 1. This guy is 2. Now what happens if I eat a banana? Well, the apple will copy into the temporary dictionary fine because the key is 0, right? So it's going to go in order. It's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's going to copy 0 into this new temporary dictionary, which is fine. And then we're going to go to banana and then see, okay, this is key 1, but we don't want to add it. We're not going to add key 1, right? We're not going to add banana to our dictionary. And then we're going to look at cherry. Now cherry, the key is number 2, and it's going to add it into that temporary dictionary as key number 2. And that's a problem because when I load my inventory, I'm going to for loop through my inventory and say, okay, at key 0, we're going to add this. At key 1, we're going to add this. But then it's going to see in our temporary dictionary, we now have key 0 and key 2, but not key 0 and key 1. So in case if x is bigger than 1, or I, meaning if there's anything in front of this thing that I'm eating, right? If x, meaning like this cherry, is bigger than this, if there's anything in front of that banana, then instead of having it at key x, we're going to have it at key x minus 1. And that's it. So it seemed a bit hard, but that's it. And now what we'll do, this is the easy part. So we've copied over the new dictionary we've created a new dictionary, but now we want to make it equal to it. So first we have to clear our old inventory, and then we'll say inventory equals to temp dictionary, and that's it. However, in this case, I'm also going to close our thing. There's going to be a reason why later, but we're going to close it. So let's try this. So let's play. and pop this up. And if I go here, I use, and it disappears. And we printed our inventory. It's empty now. So let's go back to our guy and see what happens if I, the words are all messed up. I'm going to buy a few things. Yeah, there we go. Now I have nothing because I never updated my inventory. So I have to do that in somewhere. I have to do this somewhere. Let me see where I did it in my reference. Let me check. Use. Oh, I updated it on the buy. I think we can actually do it on the in here instead. Yeah, let's do that. So in here we'll say get node. Where is it? Inventory container dot fill item fill inventory. So let's play. Okay, that doesn't work. Why not? Get node non-existent function. Ah, I used the function for my reference. There we go. All right, E. Okay, let's buy some things now. Let's buy a banana and buy a cherry. Okay, so if I buy or I eat a cherry or a banana, it should now update our inventory. So we can see on the bottom, it's a bit hard to see, but we now have key 0 at apple, right? This is an apple, and then key 1 as cherry. So if you did not do that, it would not have updated that key. It would say key 2 right there, right? So that's it for our inventory. However, let's keep going. We're going to do a few more things. If you want to do your inventory series, that's it. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to make a few more changes. Okay, so for the inventory, we're going to set the process mode to always, but then we're going to also let's see where I put this, where I did this. We're going to set the item info process to always, which it is. For the slot, here we go. In the slot, when I click it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause our inventory. Right here, right? Yeah, right here. We're going to pause our inventory. So that way we can't click anything else. So the reason why, okay, let's actually take that out. So let me show you why. So if I were here, and then I purchase an apple, banana, whatever. Let's say I'm in my inventory. I want to do something with my cherry, but if I click apple, it covers it up. And the reason this is a problem is because, well, it doesn't work with panel, but let's say you use something else other than panel. Like if you use a sprite, you can go through the sprite and you can click something behind it, right? So you could click banana. Like let's say banana was here, I could click it right here and it'd be a bit off, right? So now I can click it. My inventory is still processing it. I can still interact with my inventory, but I don't want to do that. So I'm going to pause it by saying the inventory. So that's how we access the inventory. Process mode is equal to node.process mode disabled. So that's how we disable it. So let's save this. So now if I open this, I can no longer click banana because it's disabled it. However, if I close this, I can no longer use the inventory. So now I want to go into my item info. And when I close it, we're going to get that thing. We're going to say get parent. Let me double check. Yeah, get parent, which is just that, or just get parent. And then we're going to say process mode is equal to process mode always. So we're going to set it back to its default. So now when I click this, I cannot interact. Let's buy something else so we see something, so we can see that I can interact with it. Now if I have a banana, I cannot click apple until I close it, and then I can click apple. And this also works with use, right? So I can click use, and then I can click banana or apple or whatever, right? Okay, that was a long ass video, 45 minutes. That was pretty much a new record for me. This is definitely my longest video so far, but I hope you understood everything that we've done. This was a very dynamic inventory that we've done. It's very simple, I hope. I would say it's not very simple, but it's simple enough so that I think the general audience can understand it. We use a relatively simple dictionary, so we have a key and a bunch of things inside of it, which is awesome. We use preloading, which is really cool. We learned how to animate those preloading things as well, which is pretty neat. We learned how to use an item. We learned how to update the information. We learned how to duplicate a dictionary, which is very interesting. I might actually make this a separate video because I think some people might not know how to do this, which would be very cool. So I'm gonna actually make I'm gonna make a separate tutorial on this, even though it's in this tutorial. So look out for that if you want to learn more about dictionaries. Um, Other than that, though, I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed this video. I might put this on GitHub. Let me know if you guys want this project on Git. I'll upload it and put it in the comments or in the description below. If I don't get any requests, though, I'm probably not going to. So comment down below if you want it. Let me know if you have any requests in the future. Join my Discord, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.